nuclear power, the atom bomb. They became an outlier too that changed the system. Social movements too, we've seen in history do the same type of thing. Exactly. Screencasting beginning. Oh, we have to leave? We need to terminate?
Have had you talking for quite some time, and we don't want to tax you.
No. That's all right. I've enjoyed talking with you all, and I'm very very grateful that you asked me to come share. I enjoy doing this.
So Bev, what is your? It sounds like your business spans several industries. What is your engagement with education?
Formally, limited, other than looking, of course, the groups I belong to, ISTE I belong to, of course, and of course the VWBPE as well. I am not an instructional designer. That's not my background. My background is, as I said before, psychology, art, and complexity. But it does overlap a lot of the the traditional or the common sense aspects of how one learns, of course. I do work with instructional designers, however, on projects, and share wherever educators are interested in learning about some of the stuff that I do.
It sounds like you are quite the connector.
I've been told I'm a networker. I've been told that before, too.
Definitely a lifelong learner.
Well, we're all parts of complex systems, and I think if we all look at our backgrounds, we find that we're constantly evolving and changing and flowing into different areas. I'm one of those, as you pointed out quite correctly, a lifelong learner. I'm interested in everything, literally. Undergraduate school, I found myself with 2 majors and 4 minors because everything interested me. I wanted to do it all. Quantum mechanics, I adore. I'm a dilettante at it, but I've got all of Feynman's lectures and read his QED. I love it. It's just, it's an interesting world. It's an interesting place. And I see connections between different fields as a result. And as I think someone commented earlier in the discussion, we're in a Renaissance age in terms of multidisciplinary approaches to solve problems. That's the only way it will work. The complex system is evolving so fast in so many ways. You need a wide diversity of ideas and depth of knowledge in many different subject matters in order to combat the difficulties and the wicked problems we're running into. It's the only way to surf this wave, and that means embracing uncertainty, embracing diversity, checking the egos at the door, learning to accept the fact that there are many different views of the world, all of them with elements of truth to them, and not fight it so much that doesn't mean giving up your view, however, please understand that. It just means acknowledging that somebody else may also have a correct view. It may not be correct for you, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. By accepting that, you can avoid some of the pitfalls of collapsed systems.
I think, though, what you're kind of proposing, I mean, just taking it down to a very intimate level of on the kind of looking at individuals. I think what that sometimes means, though, is that you're either asking people, or you are, in kind of playing a role in this and making this change happen, shaking really the very foundations of how they see the world. And that's everything. It's not just cosmology, but also their moral foundations of how they think everything is put together, the way things should be and shouldn't be, what's right and what's wrong. And having gone through a process in my graduate school days of becoming a counseling psychologist, I have to tell you that there are moments in that process of undoing and then rebuilding that were very disorienting, to say the least. Because you're having to kind of strip away everything that, again, was the kind of foundation of your phenomenology of how you thought everything was put together in order
Sure.
to achieve that broader perspective.
No, agreed. And it can scare people to death.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
a lot of it too, what I firmly believe it boils down to, how rigid our views of reality are depends entirely on how afraid we are to the core of embracing uncertainty. And at its base, rudimentary sense, uncertainty is basically death. So does it scare you to death, or are you able to just sort of say, okay, if it happens, it happens. I've got to put one foot in front of the other. It depends on, that will determine in many cases how able you are to embrace multiple views of reality. But again, that does not mean that you abandon or sacrifice your particular views of how the world works for you. It just means that somebody else who has a different opinion, you're not going to blacken their eye. You're not going to punch them out because their view of reality scares you so much and challenges your belief so much that you have to stop them. Instead, you say, okay, that's all right. You can believe that, but, that's not for me. That's not where I am. But that's okay. That's your view. That's your world, and that's okay. The more that we are able to do that, then the more you see transcultural, transnational collaborations able to occur. And you're right, Jack. My master plan is to change the world. I want desperately to help minimize a lot of the pain that we go through as humans from our collective experiences, from the kid that's bullied at school to cultures that have to exterminate one another. I'm very much, what do you say, glass half full, rose-colored glass, eyeglass type of person.
Well, and that would be like a 5-hour at least discussion all on its own of because I feel the same way. I mean, there's just so many things out there, so many issues that are um, so relevant, and that we seem to this point so incapable of solving. And they should be easy, but they're not. At least they're not. They don't seem to be easy to move on because we haven't. There's things like poverty. There's things like hunger.
Well,
Um,
that's again personal choices, and again that's the human
yeah,
dynamic we talked about earlier, and that's never going to change. That humans are human, and I'm a firm believer in competition. I am incredibly competitive, but does that mean I'm going to sabotage somebody else's work? No, I will cheer them on for their incredible work that they do. But does that mean that I'm not competitive? No, I want to win. I may lose. I often do, but I don't get mad about it. It just makes me try harder next time to do better. So competition I like. Competition is what drives us forward in order to innovate. But it would be nice to be able to collaborate and cooperate and not feel threatened by others' successes. But that does not mean to diminish your own, however. I don't
well,
mean
but
that.
even on a different level, though, I mean, in order to have competition, in order to have sort of the positive dynamics and the things that the benefits we can reap from that, does it necessarily mean that we have to have starvation? I mean, is that because
Well,
that's the part
the,
I
well,
can't get my head around why that has to
well,
be so.
starvation gets to be personal choices again. If you go back in a historic sense, for instance, if you're doing a type of farming that strips the nutrients from the soil, and you do it over and over and over, you don't practice what Native Americans did with the Three Sisters, for instance, type of farming techniques, then you're going to end up depleting the soil, and you're going to end up with a desert that continues to expand and grow, and you're going to end up with starvation because you continue to have lots of children, and you've got no food and no sources for it. And there are others, of course, starvation is not necessarily within their control. I mean, he gets into a whole plethora of philosophical, social conundrums, but it's not a situation that necessarily groups can solve, because what do we know from complex systems, or from psychology as well? If you have an inflated balloon and a bubble starts popping out at one end, and you grab that bubble and you push it back in to try to control it, it's going to pop out another area. And by popping out in the other area, that's the complex systems. You impact one variable and you're going to start an entire new trajectory and a host of others. So you're constantly trying to put your finger in multiple holes that are sinking the ship. So I'm not sure what the best way to solve it. I mean, humans are by nature a conundrum. They're an enigma.
Well, yeah, absolutely. No, I get it. But that, I think I do agree with what you're saying. I mean, when you're talking about complex systems, there's always the issue of unexpected or unintended consequences. But that's a given. I mean, if you accept that anything that you're trying to do, even the things that we're talking about here that we'd like to move on and see, there are going to be unintended consequences to that, but that shouldn't stop us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I consider it, we need to ride the tiger that's already loose, and hopefully we can help direct that tiger from going off a cliff. That's what I'd like to see. Can't guarantee it, but we can give it our best shot. It's out there. It's already running, and it's just going to become more and more powerful. So it's going to be nice to be the innovators and movers and shakers to do our best with our limited knowledge and our current time and place. We cannot foresee the future, and we can't think outside of the way we are to analyze what's good, bad, or ugly. We can only try to do our best with what we have. But it's an exciting time, and I think we have a real chance to maybe, just maybe, eradicate all the ills of the world. It would be lovely. I'd like that. I don't bet on it, though. I know that our best efforts are going to be foiled in many, many respects.
Well, it would be depressing for me. I still kind of rail against this notion of perhaps that our biology is our destiny, that there's no escaping that. That we're destined to always be at each other's throats, because that's what we've always done. But, we don't like it, but we seem to be pretty good at it. So, I mean, there's this notion that, is frankly is frustrating to me.
It is frustrating. I agree. But think in terms of cellular biology. Cellular structures are programmed in their DNA to maximize their potential in their environment. Period. So how far can we leap from our cellular structure?
Well, and it raises, if you, and this is starting to get a little metaphysical, but I mean, it kind of way far afield. But that, if you take that out there a little bit further, I mean, there's different places I think you can land. This whole kind of biology as destiny that will never overcome our aggressive impulses, because that's basically what we're designed to be. That at least that's part of our potential. But there's also this other part about the intelligence. If you want to see that as a counterbalance to our baser instincts, if you want to think of it that way. Is that also a potential pitfall? Can we smart ourselves right into extinction? Bringing back, your example of the atom bomb, that we can get very, very clever and clever ourselves right out of the evolutionary race. And
I agree.
Back into non-existence.
No, I agree. I agree with you very much so. And there's a side of me that would hope that the human condition can be tweaked. But there's a very existential, practical side of me that is not sure it's possible. But we just never know until we try.
Well, and it is potentially kind of a scary sci-fi movie scenario when you think about, what we're focused on right now is learning technology and also physical hardware technology when we're talking about systems, computers, and things like that. But there's a growing field now of biotech as well. So, where does that thinking lie? It's like, okay, well, if we want to change our destiny, if we believe that biology is destiny and that's a limitation, then do we get into, bio-tweaking our natures?
That opens up a whole nother conundrum, absolutely.
No, yeah, like I said, it's a sci-fi movie scenario of pretty epic proportions. But there's that potential there, too, because I see that. We're not paying a lot of attention to that here, but that's also growing. This whole thing of, biotech.